This you may recognize as a tamper. It's probably the most used tamper of any tobacco pipe smoker. I've learned recently that these things are far more useful than I realized and serve a purpose that I didn't quite connect with. And so today, I'm gonna break down what I've learned about tampering with your tobacco pipe. Intrigued? Oh, you should be. It's probably the best video you watch all day, so just simmer down, get a pipe, and let's enjoy. Today we're doing a deep dive on tampers for the tobacco pipe. If you're interested in tobacco pipes, cigars, or the other stuff I discuss on this channel, which has to do with myself and trying to become a better husband and father and man in general, then subscribe to the channel, won't you? Will you? Will you really though? Because if you're not, I don't want you to blow smoke up I don't know where you want to blow smoke up. Just take it easy with the smoke, okay? Before we begin talking about the tamper, I do think it's important to light up the pipe because that is what we're talking about. Do you clean out your pipe every time with like a pipe cleaner before you smoke it? I don't, but I probably should. It's probably due. So let's do it. If you've watched this channel for a while, you'll be shocked to know that I have switched over from using a blue flame torch lighter on my tobacco pipes to matches or soft yellow flames. I know a couple people who probably just wet themselves with excitement because they have no life and their life is lived through me. That's right, I give life to people. I tried with the matches, but I went through 6 matches. Either went out, one of them literally as I went to light it, the tip flew off, one of them broke. This one actually works quite well. My dad gave me this lighter, pipe lighter, soft flame, yellow flame, and actually it lit up fine even though there's quite a good breeze today. So I started using the tamper the first time I smoked a pipe. Somebody gave me one of these and told me, you use it just as you're smoking to kind of tamp the tobacco. And that was basically the explanation I got and the one that I've used ever since. You use this to tamp the tobacco. And if anyone asked me, well, like why? Or what exactly does that do? I would have said, it tamps the tobacco. And they'd be like, yeah, but I mean, what's the purpose of that? What does tamping the tobacco do? And I'd say, well, I mean, it tamps the tobacco. What else do you want to know? Turns out there's a fair amount. My education with tampers started with the realization and understanding of what actually happens when you tamp and why we tamp down the tobacco as you smoke. It seems obvious, but it was, for me when I read it, it made sense. It was just a better description as to, well, what I described as you tamp the tobacco. Tamping, as clearly defined as I can make it, is the act of pressing down the embers, the ash that's burned, basically the burned tobacco, closer toward the unlit tobacco below it to continue the process of burning. And so basically what happens is as you smoke this thing, the top layer of tobacco turns into ash, which you can kind of see here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it turns gray, and that's the burned tobacco. It turns into ash basically. Well, as you smoke this thing down, you build up more and more ash. What happens is when you need to relight the fresh tobacco down below, the more ash there is on top, the more difficult it is for the flame to actually reach the tobacco below. So what you do is you tamp it. You just basically smash down, condense the burned ash on top to where it becomes closer to the unburnt tobacco below so that when you relight, it actually lights the good tobacco down below, the unburnt tobacco. Now to do this, you don't need any kind of specific tool. I have this tobacco tamper. Most people have this one. It's a 3-in-1 tool. It has the tamper here. This little thing helps you to break up tobacco that's been clenched together, maybe packed a little bit too tightly and the draw is a little rough. You can stick that tool in there and just sort of loosen it up a bit. This, beyond being just a tamper, is also used to clean the inside of your pipe bowl after you've smoked, and there's layers of kegged old tobacco on the outside of your pipe, you want to clean that off once in a while because it can, over time, if you let it build up too much, it can make your bowl a little bit too hot. This one is just like a little shovel scooper. It's used, same thing, to get into your bowl and clean it out. That's the most common type of tamper, but you don't need this. Really, all you need is your finger. Your finger can be a fine tamper because usually the ash on top isn't too hot, and you can just tap it down a little bit and get ready for a relight. You're probably gonna have to relight it. For most guys, part of the draw of tobacco piping is buying all the little accessories. It gets exciting. Guys tend to like tools and stuff. And so if you want an actual tool, but you don't want to spend the money on like a real tamper because they can get pretty excited. Excited? I get excited around tampers. They can get pretty expensive. This one I bought in Williamsburg, Virginia. It's a pewter tamper, and it's actually molded off of a tamper from the 1700s. It's really cool, but it was pretty pricey for a tamper. I can't remember how much, 20 or 30 bucks. But it does the same thing. It just has a flat end on it, and it just tamps the tobacco. If you want to get creative though, you can use anything from a stick, works just fine if you cut the edge off, an old nail. Look at this thing. This thing's old. It's a square nail. We have a ton of these on this property. But the head on it actually makes a pretty good tamper. You could use the handle of a screwdriver, although, I mean, it's plastic, so I don't know about that one. How about this one? I thought this was a pretty good idea. A AA battery. I mean, it's perfect. Don't judge. Some people like the taste of a little bit of acid in their tobacco, and that's fine. Regardless of what you use, tamping is an important part of smoking your pipe. Now, a quick tip with using a tamper. A lot of people, especially if they're new to smoking a pipe, will tamp too hard. They'll use too much pressure pressing down. You don't need much pressure at all to get that ash compressed. Really, most of the time, especially if you have a tamper like this that has a little weight to it, the weight of the tamper itself will do the job just fine. So you don't actually need to press down. You just need to use the weight of the tamper to do its job. Free tip. Actually, it's not free. If you would, I would like you to give me your money. I have a Patreon. I'd appreciate it. Last but not least, with tamping, another thing you can do that I have never done, but I know other guys will do this, is as you get the tobacco down into your bowl, down to like maybe a little below half, the lower third of the pipe. Would that be the lower third? Yes, that's mathematically correct. What guys will do, and I'm gonna show you a picture, a graph of what this looks like, but they'll actually angle the tobacco. Let me show you. So as you get down to, somewhere around here, instead of making your tobacco lay flat like this, they'll actually angle the tobacco this way. With your tamper, you angle your tobacco like this, and the idea with that is that you're actually making the horizontal line that seems like this would be straight. This is probably a better example. You see how the stem on this, the air hole, is angled upward? It comes out of the pipe and angles up. So rather than, if you look at like this isn't actually a straight line with the stem, this would be more of a straight line with the stem. And so as you get to the bottom, because you can see the problem, if you keep going down lower and lower like this, it's kind of like a fuel tank. Eventually, the stem doesn't really have much to draw on if you keep it straight. But if you angle it like this toward the bottom of your bowl, you get a little bit more of an even draw with the remaining tobacco at the bottom of your bowl. At the end of the day, a tamper is a tool, just like any other. I, like most men, enjoy tools of any kind, gadgets and gizmos and stuff. What I have realized is that the area that would make the biggest difference in my life, I don't really focus on. So the tamper is a tool, and knowing how to use it is what makes it effective. I mean, our finger is a perfectly fine tamper, but if you don't know how to use it within the pipe, it doesn't do you much good. Allow me a side tangent for just a quick moment. When I was thinking through men in general, there's something with most men where they can become obsessed with tools and acquiring things, gadgets and gizmos or collectibles. Not only do we like to collect those things and have them around and acquire new tools, we love to learn how to use them really well, better than other people. If you have a group of 3 or 4 guys standing around and one of them's digging a hole, I almost guarantee you one of them is going to tell you how to use that tool better. I've been on this little journey, you could call it, of self-improvement, of trying to make myself a better man so that I'm a better husband to my wife and a better father for my kids. And hopefully, out of that betterment, I'll actually be a good leader in my community. It's something the world desperately needs, is men to stand up and reclaim masculinity in the traditional sense, because it's been smashed out of us by our culture, by a very feminized culture. One of the best ways we can combat that feminization of men is to use a tool that we're all born with that we neglect greatly, and that's our mind. We often avoid learning or implementing new tools for our mind that could actually make us better sons or fathers or husbands or community leaders, things that are desperately needed in our world today. Here's where this is really going for me, and it's something I'm obsessed with to some degree, is that in general, men don't spend much time bettering themselves. That's really the point I'm trying to connect here, is that we'll spend a lot of time, researching things like this, like how do I use a tamper better, or how do I smoke a pipe, or it's totally fine. But the amount of time we actually spend working to better ourselves, and I don't mean just like watching a video about bettering yourself, that's fine, but actually taking practical steps to take those tools, if you will, that we learn through a video or a podcast or a book, and actually figuring out how to implement that into our lives to make ourselves better. That's the area that I feel like we need to do more of as men. I look at myself and I spend so much time consuming YouTube videos or podcasts or books through Audible or books themselves. I've tried to bring in more. The problem, I guess, is that there's no lack of knowledge being funneled into my brain. There's actually probably too much, because I take so much in that I forget most of it, because I don't take the time to just stop and take that one point that I learned today, one thing, and figure out how can I actually implement this, and then work to implement that before I even go off to learn any other new skills. Because what's the point of filling my garage with tools if I don't know how to use them? The same thing with my brain. What's the point of constantly filling it with new information and new ideas if I never take the time to stop and learn that thing and implement it into my life in a realistic way that'll actually change me for the better? And that, I think, is the problem. And that's the area I think we as men in general need to get better at, is learn the stinking tools. You're taking a lot of information in, take some time to learn it, develop it, and then move on to the next skill or the next tool to be acquired. Anyways, would you subscribe to the channel? It would help me out a ton. And if you would comment, that would be helpful. And realistically, if you would be so kind, think about contributing via Patreon. The other thing, if you're interested in what I've been talking about and bettering yourself and implementing tools into your life in a very real way, in a positive way, to become a leader, to become the men that we need in this country or your country, the world in general, we've created a group on Discord called The Guildsmen. It's totally free to join. We're doing some truly, authentically life-changing things. That's overly dramatic, I realize, but there's some cool stuff going on in there. And if you're the kind of guy that wants to make yourself better for your family, for your community, for our culture, or just for yourself, check it out. The link is in the description below. It's totally free. And I guess that'll about do it. Thanks for watching. Comment below, won't you? Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything with the tamper, important, like what you could, how did you miss this about the tamper? Let me know.